Um, well, first, I guess I'll give a brief of, who we are and what we do. So we take in single moms and their kids that are at risk of entering the foster care system, and we give them an alternative to that scenario. Um, we we actually started in Hastings, Nebraska. Our founders, Luke and Karina Cleaver, started the first Miriam's Hope in Hastings, and then got the opportunity to move to a more rural setting um, just east of Oberlin. So now there's a lot more space. We kind of have the the ability to actually, live on site, with our families, and and our founders also um, were foster parents and adopted kiddos out of the foster care system, so they had a pretty good idea of the the benefits, and now the detriment to what the foster care system is now, because it is so overwhelmed.
Okay. So is help me to understand better here then. Is this for children who would be put into foster care, but they go this route instead? And
Yes.
then would the would the parents be parents then who are foster care parents who are coming to then be with this child? Help me to understand, what does that dynamic look like in the home?
Okay, so the what usually happens is, so our it's a residential program,
Uh-huh.
so moms and kiddos get to live on site
Okay.
with us. um, and it would be the single mom who is at risk of losing her
Oh,
children
okay.
to the foster care system.
Gotcha.
So, it's kind of, we would like to say it's preventative, but
Uh-huh.
usually, the cycle's kind of already started
Yeah.
before we enter the picture. Um, and we are, we call it Miriam's Hope Ranch. We have 20 acres just
Okay.
outside of Oberlin, and we have two housing units there on site. And the founders, the Cleavers and their family also live, they have their house on site also. We have a family advocate that lives in the housing unit with them. So there is somebody there 24/7, just in
Okay.
case, there's a need or a crisis mode, takes place.
Uh-huh. So this sounds like such a beautiful thing. Me having just heard about it,
Mhm.
but it sounds very beautiful, and because it seems very proactive rather than reactive.
Very much so.
Very much trying to, okay, what can we do in a situation where it's not a danger to the child, but we can help keep this family structure intact, which is always it's always best for the child to have their natural parents if it's a safe environment. I
Yes.
mean, I want to make that clear, obviously,
Yes.
because I've known a lot of people in the foster care system that talk about a lot of the things that happen. And yes,
Mhm.
there are obviously some times when it's not safe for the child and you need to get them away. But if
Yes.
possible, yes, in a situation like you said, where you have a parent who wants to try and is struggling and wants to be with their child, it sounds like you guys are stepping in to help them be able to make that transition rather than their child being lost in a system. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And, just like you said, we can all think of half a dozen reasons why kiddos shouldn't be with their parents. Those are kind of the easy things, to come
Uh-huh.
up with. But actually, the majority of kids that enter the foster care system for the first time is because of poverty.
Yeah.
In our world, in our country right now, moms, especially in that sort of situation, a single mom a lot of times has to pick between staying home with their kids because there's no daycare or they can't afford daycare, or putting food on the table. And putting food on the table usually wins.
Yeah.
So, in that scenario, a lot of times kids are left in that neglective, what we would call, a neglective situation.
Mhm.
And it's really just the the situation that we've put the single mom in that does that. And, when it comes to the time where they can't do that anymore, or somebody turns them in, or, they feel it, life slipping out from underneath them, we want to give them the opportunity to come and stay with us. It's at no cost. Our families don't pay anything to stay
Okay.
with us. And so they get a stable place to live and some encouragement and training. And that is something that, you know, a lot of us take for granted. If we've,
Sure.
been raised in what normal, I'm not sure there is a normal really in our country, but, if we've been raised in what we consider a normal family environment, we take a lot of things for granted,
Mhm.
you know, time management and budgeting and even meal planning, something that, you know, I know until I actually started working with Miriam's Hope, I didn't really sit down and think about all those things that I took for granted that I already had, in my life,
Yeah.
from the family, that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And a lot of these moms don't have that family support,
Yeah.
to do that.
Okay. Wow. Well, thank you. We are on Divine Mercy Radio, our fall Care-a-Thon, and we're speaking with Angie. You said Gaede?
Yes.
All right. I'll make sure to get that correct. But I don't see that we've had a trivia winner yet. Our question here, as we're speaking with Angie about this wonderful program called Miriam's Hope. Our trivia question, I'm going to read it one more time and have you call into 785-621-4110, either with your pledge or your answer. And so let's see who can get to that, because I imagine Angie will end up kind of giving the answer away here. So the question is about how many children are in the foster care system in the United States. Is it A, around 40,000, B, around 400,000, or C, around 1,000? About how many children are in the foster care system in the United States? A, around 40,000, B, around 400,000, or C, around 1,000. Even if you don't think you know it perfectly, call in, give us a guess. I want to thank right now that we got the St. Joseph Council, Knights of Columbus, and they give $50 a month. So we want to thank them so much for that. We thank all of you guys who are out there listening, everybody who is donating. Please call in to 785-621-4110 with your pledges or your answer to that trivia question. And I want to get back to Angie with Miriam's Hope. We're talking about how it got started, what it is, and you hinted at it, but why is there a need for this in Kansas right now?
Oh my goodness, there's a need for this everywhere, not just Kansas. Um, but I think that, like we kind of talked about before, the foster care system had wonderful intentions when it started.
Uh-huh.
And now it has gotten, overwhelmed. And it's so easy for those families to slip through the cracks. And the Kansas City Star did an investigative report a little while back. And so I'm going to give some stats. I won't give away your trivia
Okay.
question, but I'll give away some stats here. So 80% of the prison population in
Uh-huh.
our country is former foster care kids.
Oh, wow.
90% of death row inmates in Texas and California were foster care kids.
Wow.
57% of sexual and human trafficking victims are foster care kids. And that's a conservative number because we have lost track of so many kids
Okay.
that really, I mean, they say 57%, but in my own personal opinion, that's a pretty conservative number for that. Um, Kids are 6 times more likely to be sexually and physically abused in foster care. And we don't really we see it in the movies and
Mhm.
whatever, but we don't. Sometimes I think we let that kind of brush off of our shoulders without really taking it to heart.
Yeah.
And foster care kids have PTSD at 2 times the rate as war veterans.
Yeah.
It's that separation, from a parent or an environment that's all they've ever known.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. Sometimes we look at it from the outside and, all we see is we see the surface, like the mom leaving kids home alone or whatever it may be. But we don't really stop to think sometimes about what the kiddo is, at how they're going to be affected
Mhm.
in that situation.
Yeah, I know personally several foster care parents, and the ones I know are absolutely wonderful people. But as you've been saying, the system is so overwhelmed, and from my understanding, I'm not personally involved in it, but from
Mhm.
my understanding, there are a lot of things, yeah, that need fixed and need changed, and yeah, you give us some very good things to think about that these kids, imagine what it would be like, not because the foster care parents are bad or anything like that, just but maybe because of the system. Imagine what it would be like to be in a home for 30 days or 90 days. And then all of a sudden, well, now you're getting moved to another one. Well, I mean, yeah,
Mhm.
it's no wonder some of those stats that you share, I'm not, they are huge numbers, but I'm not terribly surprised by them because of with no stability and with nobody to really call mom and dad. I mean, what do you expect of a child?
Exactly, and I don't have the number in front of me, but I think it's the average foster care kid changes families, like, 7 times throughout their time in foster
Oh
care.
my.
So can you imagine having to deal with 7 times trying to recreate your stability in your life?
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah,
Wow.
we need something to be different.
Well, then that helps us to understand, why there is a need. And like you said, no, not just Kansas, but everywhere,
Mhm.
and gives us an understanding as to looking into Miriam's hope and trying to know it even better. I wanted to break in really quick and congratulate Patty Cruz from Ellis. She was our trivia winner. So congratulations to Patty. The question was about how many children are in the foster care system in the United States, and the correct answer was around 400,000. So, Angie, as you told us, it's a system that is very overwhelmed. Yeah,
Mhm.
that would make sense. If there are 400 children in the foster care system, that's a lot. So, want to remind you that you're listening to Divine Mercy Radio. You're listening to our fall Care-a-Thon. His mercy endures forever, and we are trying to give you the best information we can on so many topics because there's so much truth that needs put out there. The gospel of our Lord needs sent out on these airwaves, and it only happens because we have donors like you out there. We have donors who provided us with matching funds. We started the day with $31,500 in matching funds. We have used up some of those funds, but we want to use them all up. That's what they're there for. Help us to get to that Care-a-Thon goal of $125,000 by calling 785-621-4110, or you can donate on dvmercy.com. Excuse me. I also wanted to thank these are some family of mine actually from Salina. So David and Alice Fox, they graciously gave $100. Wonderful people there. Alice is one of the best cooks in our diocese, along with my mother-in-law. Sorry, my father-in-law only cooks macaroni and cheese and dumplings. By the way, Gene, you make good dumplings. But want to thank all of those people. Thank you, David and Alice, for donating that $100, and I want to challenge everybody else, no matter what it is, if God's laying it on your heart, call us up at 785-621-4110. But let's get back to Angie and her program of Miriam's Hope. You've told us a lot about how it started, what the need is, why there is a need. But also, you mentioned that you have 20 acres outside of Oberlin,
Mhm.
which I actually know. My dad is from Herndon, my mom's from Oberlin, so I know that area
Mhm.
somewhat. But how did you come across the property? Did you guys get money together and buy it? What was the process of being able to get the land that you have now?
Okay, so the land is actually leased out by the city of Oberlin.
Okay.
So the property had sat empty for 10 or 12 years, and the city was generous enough to donate those uh, that property to us, basically. Um, the only thing about that is, the building sat empty for all of those years. It used to be like a boys' camp,
Okay.
like a detention kind of property, for boys. But it had sat empty for so long. And so Luke and Karina actually, after they decided that this was where they wanted to be and where Miriam's Hope needed to be, actually started renovating each and every building that was on the property. And we take no state or federal money. And it has taken, I love this about God, how he can, what we see as impossible, he makes possible.
Yep.
Um, we have spent over $1 million renovating, and God's people just like your listeners, churches just like that support us in whatever it is we
Uh-huh.
do. Um, God's people have provided all $1 million to do that.
That is awesome.
It is awesome, and it just blows me away every time I say it because, on the surface level, we could say, "Well, we need, $1 million for A, B, and C." And instantly our brain goes, "Oh, that's gonna take forever, and that's
Yeah.
impossible." But when we leave God in charge, he is he works miracles all around us, and sometimes I don't think we really see all of them.
Absolutely. This maybe is a little break from our questions that we have and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But, you know, personally, do you have some witnesses of your own that you've seen, miracles, blessings, things that you have personally witnessed, you know, with this program?
Oh, yes, every day, every
Okay.
day. Just bring in the right people into, into the program, not only as families, but as staff
Uh-huh.
to see people that truly love everybody, truly love God's people, God's children enough to say, "Oh, sure. I'll devote my life to,
Yeah.
just at the opportunity of changing somebody's life." Just because they come to the ranch doesn't mean that, it's going to be, peaches and
Oh, yeah. It's all hunky
and
dory from here on
roses,
out.
yeah, all the time. That is not how it's hard work.
Oh, I
It
bet.
is really hard work. And to find people that are committed to, to wanting to make that difference and wanting the kids in our world, to have a better option, I think that's a miracle in itself right there.
Yeah.
And somehow there, once again, if we are just if we take a step back and let God do it, he puts those pieces into place.
Absolutely. And then those families that do come to it, do you guys have people from all over the place? Is it mainly people that are in Northwest Kansas? Where do they all kind of come
Well,
from?
that's a really cool thing about the fact that we don't take any state or federal money, is because since we don't do that, we have no territory, no
Okay.
boundaries. So we can literally take somebody from anywhere.
Washington.
Yes, yes. And,
Yeah.
sometimes too, we have to remember that when a family's trying to start over, um, sometimes it's not very comfortable to do that around a community that already knows you.
Uh-huh.
And so, the families that we have had out at the ranch already really weren't local people.
Okay.
And I think we're going to find that a lot
Yeah.
because it's tough to stay in in the community that knows your story.
Yeah. Yeah. I can understand that. Yeah. When these families then do come, um, and as much as maybe you can't tell us a lot about it, but as much as you can, kind of what's the process of how does somebody find you? But then also, what does it look like when they get to the house and they're living there? Like you said, it's not all hunky dory all the
Mm-mm.
time. I mean, and I can imagine that because intact families are a mess in and of themselves. And now you put them in this
Yes.
situation, there's still going to be people that are a mess.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, like if you can give us some insight into what does that look like as for how people find you, but then also throughout their time with you, what does that look like also?
Okay, so we at the moment kind of work on the referral system.
Okay.
We have our information. At least we've been trying to get it, to every entity that we think would be, a good community partner. But most of, well, right now, none of our families are like court mandated, or they're not obligated to be there by anybody else.
Uh-huh.
So they're there completely on a voluntary basis. Um, excuse me. We're not opposed to the court, system suggesting us. In fact, we would actually encourage that. If judges are listening, we
Uh-huh.
want everybody to know that there is an alternative to what our country thinks normally would happen.
Hmm.
But once they get to us, um, then we kind of work in 3-month increments. So we call it, the 4 stages of being with us. And but at first, it is a lot of just getting used to structure,
Okay.
because most families in that situation don't have a lot of structure.
Yeah.
So we do chapel and devotions every morning. We have kind of what we would call a curriculum that we use for programming that is based on a teen challenge, if
Okay.
anybody's familiar with that.
Hmm.
And then um, we have time for moms to be moms. For the first 6 months, we encourage them not to have a job, because we want that time spent, you know, bringing your family together, learning how to be a cohesive family, getting to know Jesus the
Wow.
way, that is that strength in our life. And moms can't do that if they are, trying to figure out daycare and a job and, rent and all of those things. So we really encourage that family structure for the first part of their stay with us. Um, even if they need counseling, or um, if there's some particular parenting skills that are needed, we have community partners that come out and help, with those things. Because as much as I would love to say that, you know I have all the answers, during our programming or devotion time, the truth is that most people need more than
Uh-huh.
what we can give them. And I am not a licensed counselor. So that's something that, and none of us really are. Um, but we're just trying to do what God, you know, has asked us to do.
Absolutely. So, just a question of my own here. Do you have you guys had anybody who has come in and maybe was against God, and definitely
Oh,
kind of
yes.
had a chip on their shoulder because, like, God, who is God? Look at the situation I'm in. And have you seen their heart softened by this process? Or is it kind of, I guess what I'm getting at is, you guys start with devotions in the morning. I think that's
Mhm.
awesome. Does everybody readily partake in that? Or do you still have those people that are like, no, you guys can have your God stuff. I'll go do my thing.
Yes. Yes, very much so. I mean, they come in knowing we're a Christian organization.
Okay.
Um, and that might sound really good in an interview or, on paper,
Uh-huh.
but when it comes to actually living it out,
Yeah.
that's pretty tough sometimes for those families that come to us. And, we are not, I can't say that we're 100% successful.
Yeah.
We've had families that did come out and start the program and then said, you know what, I can't do it your way. So, and as much as we'd like to be able to say, that we were the answer and God was the answer, I can't say that because sometimes people just aren't ready to hear,
Yeah.
that. Um, and in any ministry, we always hear about the good stuff, but
Yeah.
we never really talk about the parts that don't always work.
Yeah.
And that's one of those areas. People come in because they know they need something different, but sometimes it's pretty hard to make those changes when
Yeah.
all you've ever known is crisis mode.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we just keep praying, that even
Absolutely.
after they live or even after they leave us, if they haven't completed the program, that we've maybe planted a seed.
Yeah.
That they can fall back on in the future.
Yep. And that's the best we have. Our last segment, we were talking about prayer, and then why don't we go to that first, which is pretty cool that you
Mhm.
guys do that. But yeah, you're right. People walked away from Jesus.
Oh, many
and
times.
so and so it is funny when we think we're better than him, and like we can save everybody. And so that it's good to hear that you have that realistic approach of, some people will not want the message that we have to bring, and
Mhm.
some people, very sadly, um, they want it, but they don't want it. Even the program that you offer, we see it
Yes.
all in all facets of life. Some of the people you deal with probably have drug addictions and stuff like that.
Mhm.
People with a drug addiction, they want help with their drug addiction, but then they don't. They may even put themselves into a program, but then they're like, yeah, but I want to go back to it.
Yes.
They know it's destroying them, but and so I appreciate that. I'm just being real and letting people know that, like, no, not all hope is lost, but also the reality that there are some people out there that will follow the program and it'll be wonderful for them. There are some people that are out there that may start it and then leave, but there's no reason for us to stop praying for them.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. And like you said earlier, even every family has its dysfunction. I'm not convinced that there's a family in our world that doesn't have something, that they have to deal with. So if we as cohesive families have a hard time keeping it together,
Yeah.
then, we're asking a lot for a family that has never known structure.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to break in again really quickly. Having a great conversation here, but we want to announce that we had a pledge of $250 from Colby, and that was from Linda Van Horn. And so we thank her so very much. We really appreciate it. You folks are wonderful. Keep it coming. We are on the fall Care-a-Thon. His mercy endures forever. And we are taking pledges. Our Care-a-Thon goal is $125,000. We have those matching funds that we started with at $31,500. We're down to probably a little bit below $25,000 or right at somewhere around that number. So please continue to help us out. Call us at 785-621 4110, and let's get the message of Christ out there to as many people as we can. I want to take this time also to do our second trivia question. So every hour we do 2 trivia questions. If you think you know the answer to that, call in to 785-621-4110. If you are our winner, then we'll put your name in a hat, and at the end of the day at 6 o'clock, we will draw for that winner. If you win that, then you get a $50 gift certificate to Messenger Traditional Catholic Books and Gifts, and it is a wonderful store. Even if you don't win, I would say go down there and visit them. So here is your question for the second question for the 10 o'clock hour. What are some risks for children who age out of the foster care system? Is it A, chemical dependencies, B, criminal records, C, pregnancies at a young age, or D, all of the above? Once again, your question is, what are some risks for children who age out of the foster care system? Is it A, chemical dependencies, B, criminal records, C, pregnancies at a young age, or D, all of the above? Call us with your answer or your pledge to 785-621-4110. And I hear the phones are ringing, so that is a great thing. All right, we are on talking with Angie Gaede, and we're talking about this, I guess, would you call it a group home or?
No, I would call it a residential program.
Okay.
Because it's voluntary,
Okay.
they can leave if they want to. So
Yeah,
I think
gotcha.
that's more what I would consider it.
Okay, but it's called Miriam's Hope. And so maybe that's a great thing then to ask is like, where did the name come from? How did you get to that?
Okay, so most of your listeners are probably familiar with the story of Moses in the Old Testament.
Yep.
Well, Miriam, it was Moses's older sister.
Yep.
And so when Pharaoh decreed to throw all the Hebrew baby boys, into the river, Miriam and Moses's mother put Moses in the basket, set him in the bulrushes of the Nile, and then Miriam waited, hid, and to see what would happen and to make sure he was okay. Well, in that time, Pharaoh's daughter came along, and one of her maids or servants noticed the basket in the river, and they discovered baby Moses. And so Miriam was brave enough to step forward out of hiding and say, do you want me to get a Hebrew woman to nurse, this baby and take care of it right now? And Pharaoh's daughter said, oh, yes. So, have somebody, nurse him and bring him back when he's older. And then he'll be my son. Well, we have to keep in mind in that scenario that Miriam put her life on the line.
Absolutely.
To do that, because the Pharaoh's daughter could have easily just said, you have no business, even talking to me, could have had her, killed. But Miriam risked everything to keep her family together. And that is our goal, is to keep families together.
Yeah.
I've had some people ask me, are you guys totally against the foster care system? Are you, button heads? How does that work?
Yeah.
And my answer is always no, but we are pro-family.
Yeah.
We want those families that are capable of staying together to stay together.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that is awesome. And as you bring up that story, the other kicker of it is, Miriam runs off and gets her own mom. So Moses' mom gets to then end up raising him for the first, it says until he's weaned.
Yes.
And so that is beautiful too, because with your story of Miriam's Hope, this program, it's very pro-family, and it's about, let's get the child's own mother in these terrible circumstances, and do what we can to bring them back together. Want to announce really quickly that Marianne Bohm from Salina is our trivia winner. And so congratulations to Marianne Bohm. We'll get your name put into the drawing at the end of the day. And we also had an anonymous donor from Salina who pledged $250. Thank you so very much. Keep those phones ringing. I hear them ringing right now. It'd be great if I was sitting here all day and I could hardly concentrate because the phones are just ringing off the hook. That wouldn't be a problem. That would be fantastic. Keep us on the air here. Keep us getting God's message out there. We're able to have wonderful guests on here because of folks like you. And so really, even if you don't seem to be like at this moment, like, I don't think I'm called to give $250. Just pray and ask God if he wants you to give anything. Pray and ask him, is there something I can be doing? And even if you can't give monetarily, please pray for this station because, it is those prayers that are going to get us through. And it's those prayers that are going to open up people's hearts and bring God's graces into our lives and into others' lives. So continue to call in, give us those pledges at 785-621-4110 or donate at dvmercy.com. You can also call in if you have any questions for our on-air guests like Angie, and you can call to 785-621-5061, or you can text us at 785-656-0150. Thank you so very much for all the pledges. Thank you for listening. And I want to get back to speaking with Angie about Miriam's Hope. We were talking about where the name came from. But we haven't really gotten to necessarily your involvement into it. And how did you then become called to help with this mission?
That is, well, I won't call it a funny story, but it was God. It was God.
Yeah.
My life has had some struggles. And I come from a background of domestic and sexual violence.
Okay.
So I know some of those struggles,
Yeah.
That moms have been through. And I'm only sitting here today because I came to a point of like desperation,
Okay.
cried out to God, like, I need help, in my life. And because of that outcry, about 3 years ago, I just asked God. I said, okay, please use my story, or if you could use me in the ministry in some way. I just feel like that would be my pay it forward, kind of thing. And I more than once said, here am I, Lord, send me. That was kind of my verse that I hung on to, in the last 3 years. And then I just started to pray pretty consistently about wanting to be in the ministry full time. And somebody from a church I was visiting in Herndon said, you should really talk to Miriam's Hope. And I was like, and this was just like a year ago. And I said, well, what is Miriam's Hope? I'd never even heard of.
Yeah.
So I called Luke, our director and our founder, and I just said, so what are you guys about? And he said, just come out to the ranch and see. And so I did that. I took a morning and I went out and I talked with Luke and Karina, and they gave me a tour and explained what they did. And probably within 10 minutes of the tour, God said, remember that prayer that you prayed, for the last 3 years? This is it. And I drove away that day knowing that was where I was supposed to be. I didn't even care in what, form that was going to take. I just wanted to be part of it. And so lo and behold, here I am now. I am, I have the privilege of saying that my job is ministry. A lot of people think of ministry as, that mission trip that you take, 1,000 miles away or whatever it is. But some of us forget that our mission field is right outside our front door.
Yeah.
And I take that to heart. Not only because of the situation that I came out of, but because like if you just stop and look for 10 seconds in any direction, you're going to see somebody that needs something.
Yeah.
And I just really feel like, if we all stepped outside our front door and just did something, that we can make a difference.
Absolutely. And just hearing your story for the first time, I don't know all the background to it and stuff, but sometimes we want to bury our past, and not let it be known. And because, some of it is embarrassing, shameful, stuff like that. But it's kind of amazing how God can turn those things and say, but that's your gift to the world now. And so if we can get over ourselves, I'm not saying that we have to share everything,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
But like in your situation, also a lot of times we don't know what other people are going through unless we've lived it. We can see it from the outside and be like, man, that seems terrible. And we can have sympathy for them. But to actually have been through things and experienced things and very troubling things,
Mhm.
then you have walked in their shoes to some degree. And so you can have a heart for them that other people can't. So maybe, I'd like to ask you, what are some fruits you've seen then by being able to go, okay, I had some really rough things happen to me in my life, and those could have destroyed me, but God has chosen to use those to make me stronger and help others. And so what are the fruits then you see coming from that?
Well, first of all, I instantly, when you ask me that, I instantly think of um, Jesus' time on earth, because, I mean, who did he go to?
Mhm.
He didn't go to the, prominent, rich, whatever, um, that everybody might expect. He went to the hurting. He went to the sick. He went to the lowly. And that's where he made the most impact, because people higher up on the ladder saw, like, he just helped, you know, the the tax collector.
Yeah.
He's having the tax collector, walk around with him, like, be his helper and all this stuff. And that is the way that Jesus made an impact, is because he had the wherewithal, the knowledge to know that if you break the norms, people will pay attention.
Mhm.
And sometimes I think that, we I kind of have a pet peeve, because people always say, when you say church to somebody, they think of four walls.
Yeah.
Church is not four walls. Church is you and me and, you know, everybody, outside those four walls. Um, and the church is supposed to be taking care of the sick
Mhm.
and the lowly and the needy. And that's something that, if we can focus on that, not even the helping, but just thinking of the church as outside those four walls, that puts a whole new perspective on it for me anyway, because I don't want someone to say, oh, I go to church every Sunday, and yeah, we helped in Sunday school, or we did this, and then walk outside the door on Sunday morning and never think about God again until we walk back in the next Sunday.
Yeah.
And that I think, because of my background and the people that God put in my path after that, that were there. Like, it only took a phone call or a text message, and they were there. They weren't even people, some of those weren't even people that I went to church with, but they were there when I needed them.
Yeah.
And that is so important, to know that you have that support that isn't always inside those four walls on Sunday morning. And that is really what Miriam's Hope does. We are there. There's somebody there with them 24/7. If mom is having a meltdown because supper didn't go good, or, you know, somebody's been crying for 3 hours, and you're just not used to that. There's somebody there,
Yeah.
and you don't have to step inside the church building to find somebody who cares.
Yeah. And, it's, when you say that, um, our call from Christ is, it's not an option.
No.
It is. We just had readings yesterday for Christ the King, Sunday for Christ the King. And one of the readings is separating the sheep and the goats. And the people's question is like, on both sides, they're like, well, how did we do this, Lord? And he goes, because when you give someone food and drink, clothe them, whatever you do to the least of my brethren, you do to me, and I'm
Mhm.
putting some scripture pieces together
Right.
here. But that's what he's saying is like, no, I expect you to minister to those who need it, not just, you're not a man on an island.
Mhm.
This isn't about you coming to feel good about yourself and then just going on your merry way. But yeah, when you see those people in need, to have a genuine concern, a genuine care
Mhm.
for them, and then not just that care and concern, but to live it out, to actually
Mhm.
do it. And so, yeah, that
Yeah.
seems to be a really cool piece
Yeah.
of.
And one of my favorite verses I write on the inside of all my journals is Mark 12:30. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. But above all else, love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah, the two great commandments.
Yep.
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 Yeah.
So I yeah, I'm a journal person, and I write a blog, and anyway, so I keep, a lot of written things in front of me. And that verse goes in the front of every single one of my journals,
Yeah.
because, yeah, you have to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength. But in doing that, you're called to love your neighbor as yourself.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
Wow. Let me break in one more time here, because we have amazing people out there that are helping us do just that. Angie and I get to sit here and talk about it, but you guys are actually the boots on the ground, because you're donating to making sure that this radio station gets Christ's word out there to people. And so I want to thank Becky and Francis Demmel from Hoisington. They pledged $300. Thank you so very, very much. You guys are, uh, you're helping us to do exactly what Angie and I have been talking about, is to put our faith in action, to actually make it matter, to go to those who are in need. And, there are people in need, maybe some of you right now that are out there listening. Maybe you're in need, maybe not so much from physical healing, but definitely spiritual healing. And so, God always works in the way that he chooses to work. And these radio waves may just be what you need to hear right now. And so continue listening, continue supporting our station and helping others like yourselves to be able to listen also. That number to pledge and help us do that is 785-621-4110. And we want to spend our last few minutes here talking with Angie Gaede about Miriam's Hope and the organization that she helps with. And so maybe the last couple things that we can finish with are, you said that Miriam's Hope does not take any federal or state funding at all. So one, how do you do that? Where does all the funding come from? And if people were interested in learning more about the organization and helping out, what would they do?
Okay. Well, first I want to say, yes, we never turn down a donation.
Yeah.
But there's other ways that people can support us. We really encourage the churches and people that support us to pray, because prayer is the only way we get anything done.
Yeah.
And there's a need all the time for prayer. Volunteer, if somebody wants to come out and volunteer, um, swing a hammer, or clean a building or whatever it may be. We do need volunteers. We also have a mentorship program. So if somebody wants to come out, excuse me, and just be that person that can mentor a mom, even if it means, taking them out for a meal on Sunday, or, you know, inviting them after church to their home to just spend some family time, things like that. That there's so many things that people could do that are not financial, but we do need financial support. Um, we All of our donations come from um, people just like you and me that just know that there's a need. And like I said before, God's people have been so generous so far. I mean, it kind of solidifies in your heart that you're on the right track when God, when it's God that's providing the money.
Yeah.
And it puts a kind of a spirit of gratefulness and thankfulness when you see the the donations that come in. And I think sometimes people think of, oh, $1,000 here and $5,000 there, and you put it all together. But I mean, you would be shocked at the people that donate like $50 a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's just like the station. Yeah.
yes, yes. So we don't necessarily think in the big. We
Mhm.
think in just whatever you can do, to help. And if God puts $50 a month on your heart, then, we are grateful
Absolutely.
for that. We do have a fundraising campaign going right now. So we call it our 100-fold fruit event. Um, and so that just means that we're going to take everybody that donates $1,000, which we say $1,000 donors are Keystone partners. If you know what a keystone is, it's that center piece, that center stone in the arch that holds everything together. And our partners, the people that support us, are definitely what keep us together. So we call those folks Keystone partners. But as soon as we get 100 Keystone partners, then we're going to have a drawing for half a beef.
Oh.
And we had somebody donate a whole beef and then request that half of it be used for our families at the ranch, and half of it be used for fundraising. So we thought this would be a fun way.
That's wonderful.
So, and
Wow.
you can find all that information on our website. It's just miriamshope.com, and you can donate, or if you know somebody that you feel would benefit from our program, our application is all online. We get a lot of, it's usually not the mom that calls us or initiates it. It's usually somebody close to them.
Yeah.
That's, is like, I think this would be really helpful, in your life. And so when that happens, we just ask them to please fill out the application. Have the mom fill out the application and just start that process with us. And but yeah, we've tried really hard to make it as accessible as possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can find everything on our website.
Wow, that is awesome. And I appreciate that you bring up that, sometimes that's all we do think of is in monetary value, and that is very much needed. But people forget too that, like if you're an electrician or a plumber, or you build cabinets, or you lay floor, someone could probably contact you and
Oh,
say,
yes.
do you need something? And you could say, absolutely. Because a lot of times, it has monetary value plus immediate value. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yes.
and so, it's kind of a double gift when someone does that.
Yes, very much so, very much so. We all have gifts.
Yeah.
Each and every one of us have gifts. And if that gift is, watching somebody's kiddos for 2 hours, then that's a blessing. If that means spending 4 hours laying sheetrock, then
Yes.
then that's a blessing. We all have something. We all
Yeah.
have something that we can share.
Awesome. Well, Angie, thank you so very much for your time. We really appreciate you being here. And once again, how do people get a hold of you if they want to find out more or help with Miriam's Hope?
Okay, so you can find us on the website, which is miriamshope.com. Or they can email me, and it's just Angie@miriamshope.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you, Cody.
Be praying for us, and we'll definitely be praying for you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Have a wonderful day. Okay, thank you, folks, for listening to Divine Mercy Radio. You are listening to our fall Care-a-Thon, His Mercy Endures Forever. You are listening to 101.7 KJDM